in all capacities, all metrics, you were like a king.
Well, I mean, we were doing very well. There was a point where we were making an impact because other bigger companies were like, who are these guys and what can we do to take them out?
Brother, you were doing 100 loans a week.
We had people that offered me money to buy me out. They wanted to merge. We had a lot of stuff going on.
Get ready for Real Lives of Real Estate, where the world of real estate meets the essence of your life. Buckle up as we unravel stories, homes, and the heartbeat behind it all. Let's dive into another episode. I hope you share and are encouraged. All right, I am here with the one and only Avelino.
Hello.
True value title. I've known you now for, how long have I known you? 5 years? 4 years?
5 years.
5 years?
Going on 5 years.
Because I knew Carlos. And then I met you like a year or two later. I didn't even know you. Carlos is our lender with Keyport Mortgage, amazing man. I didn't even know you were at all affiliated with Carlos until like several years, maybe a year or two later.
After the fact.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I'm actually related to Carlos. I said, what? Yeah, it's my brother. I said, oh my God. And I saw because the last name. I was like, oh, it all makes sense. With that being said, really happy to have you on. You have a very interesting story, similar to your brother, right? Where I'll let you share for yourself, but that you have not only the title side experience, right? Over the past, how long have you now been in title?
About 5 years.
About 5 years being in title. Before that, you were in mortgage,
correct?
Right? And you ran what I believe was one of the largest like mortgage companies, private mortgage companies.
Up until 2008, yeah.
Yeah, in like all of East Coast, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so pretty insane. With that being said, our favorite question of the podcast, not where did you grow up, which was Newark, right? You grew up in Newark.
That's correct.
But what did you grow up in? Did you grow up in a single family house, an apartment?
Grew up in a 2-family house.
2-family. Okay.
Correct.
In Newark though?
In Newark, okay. In Newark. On Madison Street.
On Madison Street. Oh, close to my house.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy.
A block. Well, half a block in from Ferry Street.
And did you know it was a 2-family? Like, how old were you when you were in the house?
Well, we moved there. That was the first house my parents bought because we were immigrants here. And we knew it was a 2-family. I mean,
but did you know like, oh, my parents are landlords and the tenant downstairs is paying?
Never thought of it that way.
So yeah, that's what I always ask. Like, when did you realize like, oh, my parents are getting like monthly payments?
I guess when they started renovating it, when the first tenants left after several years, and then I heard the conversation of, hey, we have to spend XYZ money because then we can get extra money. And I remember asking my dad a lot of questions about that. What do you mean if you're spending money, you're going to get money, and those type of questions? I can't remember the exact ones at this point.
Yeah, of course.
But I think that was at that point that I realized that they were getting money, from the tenant, and there was a tenant-landlord relationship. I must have been maybe 12.
Oh,
13.
okay. So you were really young.
Yeah, 12, 13.
Yeah, but that was the first time that I clicked. Like,
correct.
I can, spending a little bit of money, make some money via landlord life.
Correct.
Yeah, a lot of my clients, funny enough, like they have such I don't blame them, but they have such like a negative connotation of what it means to be a landlord because maybe their parents were a landlord and they had a tenant who didn't pay rent.
Right.
Did you ever see your parents get a tenant that didn't pay rent, dispute it, like difficult?
No, because my parents always treated the tenants like family, sort of.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it was really never like our backyard was always open when my dad was barbecuing. Tenant was always there,
Oh, wow.
They would go in, hey, come outside, have a beer, have a steak. So it was never really that landlord-tenant relationship, if you will.
Yeah.
Plus, obviously we lived there as well. So my parents never really treated some of their tenants still speak to them today.
Oh, my gosh.
They have phone numbers from each other. And,
haven't they sold?
They sold a long time ago.
And they stay in touch?
And they stay in touch.
Wow.
It's pretty interesting, actually.
Okay.
So again, we didn't really, I never saw that experience. Now, when I was a landlord, I can give you some horror stories.
I would love to hear all about it. This is the $1 million question because I found out recently you got Carlos into real estate lending side, right?
Correct.
Good. Now, when you were getting Carlos in the lending side, how old were you? How did you first get into loans?
So I got into loans. I was still in college, and I did a really dumb thing. I worked at a hotel at the time.
You worked at a hotel?
Yeah, I worked at a hotel, and I decided to take a month vacation to Portugal. Now, anyone who's from Portugal, Spain will understand that. And no one else will understand that.
Yeah.
But if you're from Portugal, Spain, you understand 5 weeks to spend in Portugal and Spain that's a very common thing. Everybody does it. So I decided that was probably my last year I can do that before I actually started working and everything else and whatever career I was going to go into. So I took a month off. When I left that day, my manager at the time said, I hope you understand you don't have a job when you come back. And he started laughing. I thought it was a joke. So I took off for 5 weeks, came back from Portugal, went to start my, to get my shifts. And they said, well, you're not on the shifts. We fired you. And I said, for what? He goes, because you abandoned your job for 5 weeks. And I'm like, I told you where I was going. But anyway, long story short, I got fired. And back then, we didn't have the internet. So we had, we had the Star Ledger, okay, because I lived in Newark. So I went in the Star Ledger and the want ads, and I started circling places that were hiring. Went for a couple of interviews. This great gal, Laura White, hired me to do telemarketing. I didn't even know what telemarketing was.
The telemarketing seems to be like the entry for so many people.
I think it's great training. I don't think if you're a salesperson, you should not sell anything until you do some time behind the phone and do some cold calling. Because that will let you know whether you're actually a salesperson or not, because the rejection is amazing.
Yeah.
People find very creative ways to tell you to go F off, which is fantastic. But you need that, as you know. Sales is 90% failure, and it's that 10% that, success makes up for the 90% failure.
And then you're like, wow.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you forget about the 90%.
And at the time, I couldn't believe they were paying me to be on the phone just to talk to people.
Why is that?
Because I couldn't believe they were paying me that much money just to take apps over,
What were you doing over
I was taking mortgage applications.
Oh, so she was a lender.
Oh, yeah. They were a mortgage company.
Okay.
It was a company called Parkway Mortgage. They were huge back in the day.
And they were telemarketing.
And we were telemarketing,
was it manual dial? Like da-da-da-da?
Manual dial. And there were call sheets from the courthouse of people who had taken mortgages. They used to have these guys run into the courthouse. And let's say like some of these old companies like Avco, Ford Financial, places like that, they were like your B and C lenders. Those are the people we were telemarketing, because those are the people we could have the most opportunity to try to refinance into lower rates. And
so you were cold calling for refis?
For refis, yeah.
Oh, wow.
It was a whole different animal.
Wow.
Yeah,
totally. And what were rates back then?
Good customer rates were probably getting 14s and 13s. So I laugh when I hear somebody saying, "Oh my God, rates are 7%." Yeah. Really? 7% is still pretty damn good.
Yeah, compared to 14.
Compared to 14, right?
Yeah, that's real. That's hard to imagine, but sadly, that's so crazy.
Yeah, we've been spoiled for a long time.
Yeah, that's so painful for me, but unfortunately, you're right. With that said, honestly, how do you go from like telemarketing for refinances to at one point, from the rumors have it that you had like 80 or 70 or 100 at Lowe's, right?
Yeah,
loan officers.
So again, long story short, started telemarketing, excelled. I was doing the 3 hours. I worked from 5:30 to 8:30. Those 3 hours I was working, I was taking more apps than the full-time guys were doing. And they were there all day.
What were you doing during the rest of your...
I was in school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was in school.
College.
In college, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were really committed to doing both.
Well, I had to, because my parents were immigrants. They weren't paying for college. So I had to pay my own way. And like I said, the hotel was good because I was making tips. So it was easy money. But then I figured out that telemarketing was a lot easier.
Yeah.
And I wasn't killing myself until, midnight. I was making the same amount of money in 3 hours that I was working at the hotel.
They would pay you commission per sale?
They would pay. So for every application that turned into a closing, I think they were paying us like $100 or something. But I was taking like 10 a day in those 3 hours.
So you're like, one is going to close. Two are going to close.
I was doing more than anybody else, And then again, it just kind of became progression. They started giving me, promotions, and then they offered me a full-time job in Wayne for a guy called Rich Sales.
And this is who you brought with. This is how you brought your brother.
And then when I went there, then I started setting up my own team, and then I quit school, which probably was a dumb thing, but I quit school, and because I was making more money at work, and I was like, wait a minute, I actually like this, and I'm into it, and I want this to be my career.
What kind of, more on the personal side, during that time, you're making a switch, you're quitting school. What did your parents say to you, Portuguese immigrant parents, when you said,
My father thought I was selling drugs.
What do you mean? Why?
Because I was making so much money. He kept telling my mother, whatever he's doing is illegal.
Wow. They couldn't believe
It's impossible. He's making this kind of money, blah, 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 and so forth.
Wow.
Until he then figured out, no, this is a real thing. And
well, how did he come to accept it?
When he saw my second, maybe it was the third year I was in the business, I filed my tax returns and I left them on the kitchen table. And again, this is a Portuguese thing. We had two kitchens. We had the nice kitchen that nobody used, And we had the basement kitchen that we used all the time.
Yeah.
And I left my tax returns on the table. And, he came home, he looked at them, and he called me. He goes, "Is this for real?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this is for real." And at that point, he didn't say another word to me about quitting school or anything like that. Didn't give me a hard time ever again.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's kind of a beautiful story.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And now, if I may ask, like, a lot of people would say, "Hey, you're making this money. Why are you living at home? Why is it a Portuguese thing? Was it just a you thing?"
Well, it was two things. First, I was very young, right? And
Define young, just so people.
I was in college, 19, 20, 18, 20,
So
19.
pragmatically, you were still
So
young.
for that
Yeah.
reason, I really didn't see a need to move out. And then I was pocketing most of my money. My mom still did my laundry.
Yeah, you loved it.
And I
up in a
came and went as I
Mercedes.
wanted. You know what I mean? So there wasn't really a pressing need for me to have to leave the house. And it's also a cultural thing too. Most Portuguese, Spanish, and Italian boys, they wind up staying at home until they get married or longer than that.
Yeah, and then literally until they get married. I stayed at my mom's house, my mother's house until I moved out for like 3. Obviously, I went to college, I dormed, but then when I graduated, I stayed with my mom's house I moved out for 3 months. I subleased someone's place. I don't know if sublease this really nice guy's place. Anyways, but then I moved right back home and I stayed there until I got married. And I was the same way. Like I was pocketing the money. My mom did make me pay rent though. She wasn't playing.
Oh, she made you pay rent?
Yeah, she made me pay rent.
I paid no rent.
Yeah, she wasn't playing. She was like, "No, you're paying." I was like,
Yeah,
"Okay."
no, I didn't pay any rent. But again, it's just a cultural thing, I think.
Okay,
And again, there was no pressing need for me to move.
You're young. And now your friends, right? You're 19, 20 years old. You have this great opportunity thanks to real estate, right? Your parents bought the 2 families. So you're kind of saying, okay, I can make money off of money. Your friends, I can't imagine, were in the same position, right? At 19,
All my
18.
friends were in college.
So what are they saying to you?
They were thinking I was nuts.
They were thinking you were crazy.
Yes, very much so.
Can you give an example?
I specifically remember this. I ran into one of my friends on Ferry Street. I'm not going to name drop, but his parents are very affluent, and he was going to a really nice college and everything else. And he asked me, "Hey, so what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm doing real estate, blah blah blah." And he goes, "Wow, I really thought you were going to do a little bit more than that." And that took me back a little bit. I'm like, "Okay."
Sheesh.
I'm like, "Okay, I see." He goes, "Well, don't worry about it. Maybe next year you can go get back to college." And I'm like, "No, I'm not going back to college. Like this is it. This is it for me. Like I'm not, I don't have a plan B. It's plan A. I'm going to make it." And so that was kind of where I was at. And then obviously as in real estate, very quickly you can make money. You
very quickly you can make it,
and you can lose it too.
It.
Yes, you can lose
very
it too.
quickly.
You can lose it too.
Very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I happened to be at the right places, the right times. I had good relationships. I had some relationships with some banks which don't exist anymore. Like the way I was getting foreclosures back then to do flips is I had a person at the bank that would call me and say, "Hey, I have 3 people going into foreclosure. Do you want to look at these properties?"
Wow.
Okay, those
Pause,
are relationships.
Okay. Pause on this. So real life first. Your dad is doubting you until he sees a tax return. So he's like, the proof is in the pudding.
Yep.
Your mom, she sounds like she's just supporting you. She's just happy.
She was very devastated. It was probably the hardest thing for me to tell her that I quit school. And one of the hardest things in my life to tell her, because she was very adamant for me to go to college. Because I would have been the first person in my family to be in college.
Whoa. Please go into more detail.
Oh, well, she was very disappointed. Very, very disappointed that I didn't finish
Did you
school.
think she was going to be this disappointed when you told her?
Yes, I knew she was. Yeah, I knew she was.
What year were you in college?
I was I was a sophomore. I was the end of my sophomore year.
So you were halfway through.
I was halfway through.
And you said, "Mom, I'm out."
Yep.
And she probably begged you, "Just stay 2 more years."
And she even offered to pay. Where at that point I know they couldn't. But
Wow.
yeah, and I said, "No, it's not about that. I found what I want to do. I'm going to go all in." And
What gave you the strength? You have no one in the industry that you
young and
personally
dumb.
knew. Wow.
I didn't know any better.
So real estate, it divided your household at one point.
At one point it did, and then it reunited, as well. Because, like I said, it's when you're not doing well, no one's on the bandwagon that you're doing well, and then when you're doing well, all of a sudden you have a whole bunch of new, favorite people because you're doing well, and that's in life. There's always going to be ups and downs, And the people who stick with you when you're downs are the people that should be with you when you're ups. Because it's very easy to get friends when you're, doing great.
Which goes to say, so your friends are still in college. Carlos, we did have him on the podcast. He said something. I was very interested. I'm like, I wonder how Carlos got in. I knew you guys worked together. It's cool to see that you brought your brother on. What was that like? Because you basically took him out of college too.
Well, unfortunately, I kind of did. He was only supposed to come part-time.
Okay.
And he did very well. And he got to a point. Actually, I'm probably responsible for about 7 people not finishing college. If I got to say the truth. And they're all very successful today, all of them. I still talk to them. My brother had a group of friends that then, of course, when I hired him, they came over too, because I was just trying to hire people to get on the phones and do stuff like that. They were all staying in the mortgage business. As I expanded, they became my managers. They ran branches.
Wow.
So again, we built something. And then, of course, as everything, as people grow and as people...
How does that affect your mind? I'm going to be honest with you, because you're bringing people up. I'm sure you had people who, betrayed you, hurt you, et cetera. You're 20-something years old. You're very young. How did that level of success at a young age impact you in terms of, relationships with friends? How were you able to tell this person's a real friend, this person just wants... how did you stay grounded?
My friends pretty much stayed constant. I didn't really bring in too many new friends, and I build relationships. I think relationships are something that are very important. So people that I know that I want around me, I make an effort. Hence why I'm here, even doing this podcast. If I didn't think highly of you, I wouldn't be here.
My heart.
Very plain and simple. Very plain and simple.
Oh, that's so nice.
Very plain and simple. So those are the people I want around my life. But it took me a few years to figure that out.
Yeah. I think one thing that real estate has taught me and impacted my life drastically is actually conflict resolution with my friends and with my partners. Because relationships are so... People I don't want to have a conflict. We're friends. I actually think the opposite. I think, okay, so we are friends, right? I do care about you. Like Avelino, me and you work together. We're literally back to back, right? Avelino, pull a miracle off with title. Brendan, your client's going to cancel a deal. I just got the title. What's going on with this cancellation, right? We got to work on this together, right? The attorney dropped the ball, or, right?
Right.
In those moments, for me, I want to go nuke, and I have nuked, and just everyone, But the reality is, for me to really value friendships, what that looks like in action is me say, okay, Avelino, what could I have done better? Okay, Jim, Jim's our attorney. What could we do? Avelino, do you hear what Jim's saying? Jim, do you understand Avelino has been asking this for 3 goddamn weeks? And then George just comes in out of nowhere, right? So having the ability to have very direct conflict, oriented resolution conversations, massive value. But who the heck teaches you that at 23, 24, 25 years old? Well, you have 10 friends dropping out of college.
I was very lucky. Rich Sales, which was my manager when I first started, and we became friends. He would come to my house. I went to his house. I went to his kids' things and his son's grandkids' things I went to up until he died a few years ago.
Oh, you were close.
Yeah, I was very close with him.
Wow.
And I had a good mentor. He was a very good mentor to me. And I realized that just watching him and watching the way he resolved things, he always kind of put people in their place without putting them in their place, if that makes any sense. And he always did it with a very gentle hand. Whereas when he was upset, everybody was like, this is code red, because he never gets upset. So I kind of took a little bit of him.
You're like that. You never get pissed. But when you get pissed, I avoid your calls. I'm like, oh no, hide.
It takes me for me to get to that point. It's a long road to get there. But then when I hit it, it's like, okay, either we have to do something about it or not. You know what I mean? And we have to get this done or whatever done. And sometimes you just have to be like that because people aren't listening, or people are not paying attention,
Oh yeah. And then I think you're entirely right. The mentors that we have shape us so much.
100%.
It's crazy.
100%.
I would say your brother, right, Carlos, he is a mentor to me. And there are so many times I'm like butting heads. And now the more I grow in the business, and even though just an experience, not in some big headed way, right? But just in the longer I'm in, the more I realize that things that Carlos said to me 3-4 years ago are true.
Or actually happening.
And that's a really hard thing to hear because like cars would tell me, Brendan, this is not what you should do. You should do this. I'm like, no, I just want to learn by experience. That was my big thing. As real estate professionals, as first time home buyers, you can have that kind of pride, that ego of like, no, I want to do it for myself. It's actually beautiful. It's like a courage, right? But when someone has literally done this 5,000 times, you're probably should listen to them, right? So that's something that I really have learned because now when I tell Carlos, I'm like, he's like, I would tell you, but you're not going to listen to my advice. I say, Carlos, I don't have the luxury to learn by experience anymore. Just give me the lesson.
It costs too much money to learn by experience.
Yeah, it costs a lot. It costs a lot of money and a lot of time. So, okay, fast forward. Now you have that, you're growing the branch. How did East Coast, that was what it was called, Beast Coast?
East Coast. So
I always thought it was Beast Coast.
No, East, not Beast. I was a Beast, but it's East Coast. Yeah, it was East Coast.
Okay,
so
how did
East
that
Coast,
come about?
funny enough, I left Parkway and I left Rich Sales because Brian Moran at the time, he was the person, he was the founder and the person who was running Parkway Mortgage at the time where I was working at. They promised me New York and I didn't get New York. Son came out of college. Son got to New York. I stayed in New Jersey. So that really ticked me off. And probably more than it should have, but for some reason my feathers got ruffled for some reason from that. And same woman, Laura White, calls me out of the blue that week and says, "What are you up to?" Because I stayed in contact with her and her boyfriend, Vinny, great guy too. He was in construction. He's a guy you got to get on your podcast if you could. He's got stories like you have no idea. He looks like a Harley Davidson guy, big beard, tattoos and stuff, right? And he's done. I used to always be fascinated. I used to just ask him questions because he seemed like he did everything at some point in his life.
Wow.
He was a great guy. But anyway, so Laura White calls me that week. Says, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, and I kind of, blew my stack a little bit. It's like, "Can you believe these people? They did this, this, and that." She goes, "Listen, I'm at this place, East Coast. They want to break into BC Paper. BC Paper was like, not bad credit people.
Make
but
it
people
as simple as possible."
Yeah, so back then, we didn't have all the FICO scores and stuff. So BC would be people that had a couple of credit things, lates on their mortgage maybe, lates bankruptcy, a foreclosure, some delinquencies. So they weren't great
borrowers,
great credit borrowers. They weren't the Fannie or Freddie Mac type borrowers. So they didn't. Back then, we had two divisions. You had a Fannie Mae division, and then you had the B and C. They didn't have a B and C. So I came in to start that, and from there, I then bought out the father, and then it was a father-son combination there. I bought out the father a few years later, and then a few years later after that, the son. He was an attorney, but he wasn't doing much. He just used to review our contracts, leases, and stuff. And he knew he was like, let me sell now before, he just winds up taking everything anyway. And bought the other 50% from him, and that was it.
When do you buy out the company?
Yeah, 2002 is when I bought out both son and father.
Wow.
So I started 2002 is when I started just on my own.
Oh, okay.
And that was scary.
Why was that
really
scary?
Because all of a sudden I realized I didn't have anybody else there with me. It was just me.
Yeah. And when
that
you say,
was scary.
And what was the size of the company?
The company at the time, Carlos already had his own branch. We were probably about 25 people, 30
25
full-time people.
Agents, loan officers.
Loan officers, processors,
Gotcha.
underwriters.
25, 30.
Yeah.
Are you married at this time? Or
I was married.
how does that kind of ambition, that kind of income increase, those kind of capital like expenditures, how does your wife handle that?
We got to a point where she wasn't handling it because I also did retail at that time.
Oh my God.
Yeah. We had a couple of stores and malls and stuff like that. So
you were doing retail, had 30-person company with mortgage and anything else, or
yeah, and we had apartments and
you're
and
doing
houses.
landlord life, and flips.
Oh yeah.
Okay, how the heck does how does your spouse support? When do you have
7
time
days
to
a week? Well, that was the problem. She literally said to me, either you figure out what you want to do, one of these things, and get rid of everything else and just do one, because we can't do this anymore.
Oh, your wife basically gave you the ultimatum. She said either you got to straighten up or you're going to be by yourself in this way. Like I'm not living this life with you.
We didn't
this
have
way.
kids. We didn't have kids.
Okay.
Which helped.
It helped a lot. But still, when did you see your wife?
We again, I worked every single day. Every single day. I
So
used
you really didn't
I
see
used
your
to leave
wife?
the mortgage company and go to Willowbrook and close out the store in Willowbrook. And then leave there at 10 o'clock, 10:15, 9:30, 9:45, whatever time that was. and then I'd go home.
So when did you I'm not trying to be funny. When did you actually spend time with your wife during the?
After 10 o'clock at night and certain times during the weekend.
So, okay, wow. So basically your wife had you 4 days a month.
Pretty much.
Okay. Did you guys go on lavish vacations during this time?
We did. When we went to vacations, I spent a lot of money. I did everything first class, flights,
now,
hotels.
do you still go first class, or are you over the first class life?
I don't, because now I have 3 kids.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm not putting them in first class. They can do that when they work.
You should put yourself in first class and put the 3 kids in the back.
Yeah, no, I'm planning on doing that actually. They're old enough now where I don't need to be with them.
No. That's really funny, actually. Okay, that's really funny. So
see, here's the difference. When you have 1 child, there are different vacations. When you have 2 children, vacations change. When you have 3, your cars change, your vacations change. Pretty much everything changes once you have your 3, which nobody tells you that, by the way.
when you say everything changes, give an example.
The car you drive.
You need a 7-seater.
You need a minivan.
You need a minivan.
Minivan or a very big SUV.
What basically you need at least 6 seats.
You need the extra third
You
row.
need the extra, no matter what.
No matter what.
There's
period.
there's no funny
2 car seats. Where are you putting the other one?
in the middle. No. Oh, you can't fit all 3.
You can't put two
Wow,
car seats.
you're
Even on the
right.
biggest, like a
Yeah.
Range Rover or something, you can't put 2 car seats.
If they invent a car that can fit 3 car seats, it would be a big hack.
I had a Hummer. I couldn't put 3 car seats.
Oh no! If you can't fit 3 in the Hummer,
You
you'd
cannot
be,
fit 3 car seats.
wow.
And
Okay.
that's a Hummer.
So back to the real estate world. Your wife ends up saying pick one or pick none. So what you end up shutting everything out, you sell it.
I
What do
wound
you
up
do?
picking real estate.
Mortgages. Okay. And you sold off the rental properties.
We did everything. We liquidated everything.
Did you lose money with that, or did you make
No,
money?
hindsight, I lost money because we should have kept everything. Me and my brother should have kept everything.
Hired a management company at the end.
Because, you know what I mean? Because at the end, we missed out on 20 years of
Appreciation.
equity.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Sad. That's a big.
So I mean, we made money, but we could have made more money.
Way more money.
Right.
Okay. Now.
See, they always tell me, and these are people who are much smarter than me. They say you always lose money when you sell a property. No matter how much money you think you're making, you always lose money.
That's the worst part. I have a 2-family right now in Kearney. I'm about to cash out refi. It's a very, very, very. I can't believe I'm going to cash out refi. I'm only going to make like $700 a month in cash flow, and I'm like, if I sell it, I can have all this hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, yes. But I keep hearing this noise in the back of my head. It's like, never sell, never sell, never sell, never sell.
Because listen, if it's carrying itself, it's paying for itself.
Literally.
Eventually, it's an annuity.
Eventually.
Yeah.
Eventually.
And you're a young guy.
Right.
So,
yeah, definitely.
So you have plenty of time to make that annuity. And think of it this way: no matter what, you're still going to get the depreciation. Even if you're going to have times during your lifetime where real estate is going to go up and down. It's never going to always go up. It just doesn't happen. But the tendency is to go up, right? So give you an example, my parents' first house that they bought
on
Madison Street, I think he paid $52,000 for it.
Oh my God.
2-family, attic, because me and my brother were in the attic. They made a bathroom up there, full bathroom. We had 2 bedrooms, so we were up there. 2 bedrooms on this second unit, living room, kitchen, bathroom, small office, and then the other part was the same, and then we had the basement. Okay, so they bought it for $52,000. They sold it. I don't want to lie. I think they sold it for $5 and change.
Okay.
Which at the time was like the height of the market at that time. And which, think about it, 52 to 500 and change.
Yeah, 10x their money, essentially.
Right.
Okay.
So, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I 100% know what you mean.
So you can't look at it that you're getting that $700.
Yeah.
You're looking at it that you're getting the mortgage, whatever you want, it completely paid for. And eventually you will have an annuity.
Eventually.
Or your son will have it.
Yeah, that has been a big thing for me.
Because legacy, right?
The legacy. And it's tough for me because I'm like, there's a saying that this guy, Alex Ramogi, says. He says, if you leave your children everything and they're like a bad kid, they'll spoil it and waste it, right? Bad kid or just irresponsible, whatever it means, right? They'll spoil it and waste it. But if they're a good kid, they won't actually need your inheritance because they can go and make their own, right? If they're good is like relative, right? Competent or whatever you want to say. But at the same time, if you do give your child something, they'll be able to multiply their much. That's what the hope is, right?
Right.
Now, let me ask you a question. Going all into real estate must have been like, one point like, oh, now I'm going to give all my focus, which I think that was a great decision, clearly.
Yeah, that was,
Now you have these companies, 25, 30 people, you're all locked in, just lending, East Coast mortgage. What does it look like? What was like the peak? And now East Coast Mortgage no longer exists, right?
So the peak, we went to like 102 employees, 104 employees. I had underwriters from big banks at my office underwriting loans. I used to have people come in and buy loans. We were a banker. I wasn't a broker.
Oh,
I was funding my own loans.
You were a bank, direct lending.
Yeah, we were direct lending. I had my own underwriting guidelines. I had everything.
Serious.
Yeah, so I had a phone at Deutsche Bank's bond desk. I worked very hard to get that.
That was a huge moment.
Unfortunately, that only lasted about a year. 'Cause I got it like 2007, and then 2008 everything imploded. Actually, 2007 at the end of 2007 things
Before the
started
implosion,
imploding.
what would you say for how did that level of growth, and what our podcast is not about like how to make all the money. Yeah, our podcast is more like pragmatically, how does it impact your personal life? So that level of growth, how did it impact you as a person in your personal life?
Well, I think in my personal life, it allowed me to create a living situation for my kids that I didn't grow up in. So on the financial aspect of it, it was fantastic. Then everything came to an end very quickly.
How do you manage that level of income? Because you weren't used to making that amount of money, right? So your income, I'm imagining, goes up so much there further, right? How do you kind of brace yourself? How do you not how does your head not implode? How do you not think you're just Jesus walking on water, for lack of being a heretic?
I think my family and my friends kept me very well grounded. I mean, it wasn't, no one looked at me like I walked in a room and nobody looked at me like, oh, he's got a lot of money. And they looked at me and they're like, hey, douchebag, come over here. You know what I mean? My family was we're 11 boys, and one of them, Joey and stuff.
Of course.
Right? We don't treat each other as like, oh my God, you're like
But that's your family, right?
Right, but that's what keeps you grounded. That's what keeps you grounded.
If you had
because your family doesn't, even if you start thinking you're a prima donna, your family, at least my family knocks you down and say, hey, relax, buddy.
Yeah.
I changed your diapers, relax.
Yeah. No, my family's the same way for sure.
Yeah. So that's, again, having good people around you is the key to everything.
I couldn't agree with you more, but I do got to add, the income that you guys were making wasn't like, okay, I'm making $100,000, now I'm making $500,000, right?
Oh, it was stupid money.
Yeah, it was insane money. So that's, let's be honest. How the hell do you, brace yourself without losing yourself in that kind of income, man? It wasn't really that pure, staying grounded to your family. Because a lot of people lose themselves. They get because I'm sure you guys bought very nice things, right? But how do you not just say, I am my wealth? Because you experienced the flip.
I'll be honest with you. I was so busy that I wasn't thinking about, the money. I mean, the money aspect was great because, I literally walked into a couple of car dealerships and just bought cars, right? Which I've never done in my life. Literally. Just I want
cash.
Yeah, it was stupid. Like I said, it was stupid.
Yeah, I remember the story. Your brother once shared me a funny story. He's like, I don't know. We got to get permission. But basically, one time he brought you to a Porsche. You called him, and you're like, hey, I'm going to go look at this Porsche. You want to just come with me just to check it out? And by the end of it, your brother convinced you to buy the Porsche.
Yeah, he did. There was, you know what? I love that car, and I should have never gotten rid of that car. I love that car. It's the only car I can actually say I loved.
What was the car?
It was just a Porsche C4.
Porsche
C4.
C4.
It wasn't the turbo or anything, because I think I'd probably kill myself in it.
Yeah, you probably would have.
But it was nice. It was nice.
Oh yes, this
nice.
is the funny. When you read something, he's like, I brought him to the Porsche dealership, and he invited me to a Porsche dealership. I'm the one person you never want to invite to a dealership.
Yeah, me and him are terrible. Don't ever tell us to go with you look at a car. You're gonna come with the car, or with like a car you didn't even think you were gonna come back.
That's
with.
nice. That's so nice. He's like, no, that's what you need. Yeah, no, you guys are really bad. Yeah,
but like I said, that aspect of it was great. But again, we were so busy. I literally had my schedule full from the time I walked in to the time I left. And again, I love what I do. So it wasn't work for me. I was excited to get in.
Wow.
And I was recruiting people. So I was excited to find out,
at that point, you're not doing any loans. At that point, you just gain talent.
At that point, believe it or not, I had a daily meeting with two of my underwriters. And we sat down and I said, I don't want to know about anything that's going smoothly. I just want to know about every problem that we have, every file that's a problem, or every file that we're missing something on, or, talk to me about the problems. I don't want to know about everything else that's going on. If it's going good, I don't want to know about it. So that's kind of where we were, because again, you got to get to a certain point where you just can't do everything yourself. You have to trust the people you put into place. You have to trust your gut. You put them into place for a reason, and then you got to let them, let them run with it.
Yeah.
You can't micromanage them. If you micromanage them, they're never going to be self-sufficient and do what they're supposed to do for your business.
Wow. Yeah, I'm learning that right now. But you really
You have to make them accountable, though. They have to be accountable.
very clearly. So, and what I like to do now that I've learned is like tie people to a number. So like every person has a number. For example, like our transaction coordinator, like, so if you're buying a house with us, or you're selling a house, on average, we want that to be around the 55-day mark, right? So within 55 days, that house should be sold, closed,
Should be
paid,
closed.
done. That's average. So she knows if it's at 70, she's
a
not doing
problem.
a good job.
Right, what's going on?
Right? If she's at 45, wow, our client's going to be super happy. We're so grateful to be opportunity to work with you because we want to be able to offer streamlined service, right? Same thing for attorney review. Our attorneys, we have them on a 5 calendar day a number.
For attorney review to
So
come out of
if
attorney
we're in attorney review a week, something went wrong. That's 7 days. If we're there 4 days, hey, great job. And these are the kind of metrics that you have to have in order to like, because holding people accountable can be very subjective, as I've learned. Like, hey, are you doing a good job? Yeah, I'm doing a great job. Blah, 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 blah. But if you can't really prove to them, here's why you're missing the mark, because this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get 55 days, and you're at 62 days. There's a difference, right? And that's a case. Okay, but question for you now. What did your wife think? What did your kids think? Were your kids aware, you think, of the money, like all this fast life that you guys were living?
Well, I don't think they were at the time. They're probably aware of it now because since I've been divorced and, we've downsized the house.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was just normal to live in, a 6,000 square foot house with a pool and,
Yeah, they're like,
and
"Oh,
have like 6 cars in the driveway. It wasn't a big deal.
Don't all the kids do this?
Yeah. What happens is when you get to a certain level where you live, everybody's pretty much like that. So it becomes your kids. You raise your kids differently no matter what because you just are. The environment that they're in is just different.
Okay. Now walk me through the crash.
Okay.
What did that look like for your company? What did that look like for you? How did, like, personally, are you having nervous break? I'm thinking nervous breakdowns.
I just didn't know what even to do at one point. I got a call I was going home. It must have been about 8:00 at night. No, I left early that day. It was like 5:00, 5:30. I was driving home. I got a call from one of my investors that said, listen, the 25 loans you just sent us, we're not buying any of them. We stopped lending today. You have to take them back. We're shipping them back to you. And at that time, I think that was like 14 million. I mean, the loan amounts weren't as high as they are today.
Yeah.
I think it was like 14 million or 15 million of my warehouse lines that now I couldn't recycle.
So what does that mean?
So I made a U-turn, turned back around, worked all weekend. By Monday, I had a home for all of those loans. Took haircuts on some of them. Haircuts is when you lose money on the, if you do a loan for 100,000, you take a 10% haircut. You're giving the bank now, instead of them giving you 100 grand, you're now only getting 90. So you just took a $10,000 hit. I already had paid commissions.
Wow. So it's really a bigger hit than that.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't remember the
Exactly.
fallout exactly, but I had paid out commissions,
several $100,000
on money that we thought we were going to earn that we didn't earn. I took some heavy losses on some loans just to get rid of them because I didn't want them. I was like, shit, if Bear Stearns just stopped lending, okay, where's the next shoe? And then all of a sudden it was like mortgage implode websites showed up. This one went out of business. This one out of business.
There were websites dedicated
to mortgage companies going out of business.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was called Mortgage Implode. And you can see which was a new company that day that went out of business. Yeah, it was insane.
And what are you thinking? Are you having like anxiety?
So
That's the ambulance, if you can hear it, the ambulance is coming
the
for you.
ambulance is coming to get me. So I had a bright idea. I went into wholesale.
Wholesale, what do you mean?
I brought a whole team on from IndyMac Bank and went to wholesale. I started buying from other brokers.
I don't think that was a good idea.
That was a great idea.
Was it?
Got me through another couple of years.
Wait,
I
what?
doubled down. Yeah, I doubled down and I went into wholesale.
Okay, pause. No, this is a crazy story I've ever heard. Yeah. You're telling me your company definitely shrinks in size. I'm calling. What was the year over year?
Well,
what was
the first? I took it on the chin for the first year. I didn't let anybody go because a lot of people that were with me, and you're going to realize this. There's going to be certain people that are going to stay with you. Okay, I went to weddings. I went to baptisms. I went to funerals, and it was very hard for me to let those people go.
Wow!
So I took it on the chin for a full year. Didn't let anybody go. It wasn't until the second year that I started letting staff go because they weren't doing anything all day long. There was just nothing to do. Yeah, because we went from probably doing 100-something loans a week.
Oh my God!
To to maybe 10, 15, 20.
You guys were down like 85%. You're telling me
it was bad. Yeah, but then again, the wholesale stuff was very low margins, but that at least kept the lights on, and
Cover the overhead.
and covered some of the overhead. And
So
stuff.
now you get into wholesale. When you were getting to wholesale, what was your company size?
That's when we were at max. We were like 100 and change.
Oh, because it was like we just need to do a lot of volume with thin margin.
Correct.
Okay.
I kept all my people.
Oh, gotcha.
I just didn't let people go.
How did you go from that point? You're fighting wholesale. What was the point that you said, "Hey, personally, just because I want to talk more about real estate because I love real estate, but this really should be like behind the scenes look." What is that doing to your family life, like your mental health? Are you sleeping during this time?
I never brought work home.
Brother, you're telling me the whole financial market literally imploded,
100%.
and you're telling me you don't bring that home?
The honest to goodness truth, my marriage probably was over because I didn't bring any of that home.
What do you mean?
Because I didn't bring it home. I left it at the office.
So how did that negatively affect your marriage?
I got sued by the FDIC, which was, the FDIC is the U.S. government.
Yeah.
For $34 million at the time. You want to talk about sleepless nights?
So how do you not bring $34 million lawsuit home?
I just didn't. Nothing changed. My wife drove the same Range Rover.
Did your wife know this was happening?
She knew something was happening because all of a sudden money was coming in, and all of a sudden I was writing checks. So yeah, she knew something was happening.
What do you mean money was coming in? I was writing checks.
I used to be money coming in like crazy, and then at that point it was just me writing. It was money just coming out of my accounts.
Oh,
because
gotcha.
I was just covering everything. I wasn't really making any money.
Okay, but okay, I'm sorry. What does your wife say when you have a $34 million lawsuit?
I don't think I told her until I almost had everything resolved on it.
And you think that led to a negative consequence to your marriage?
I think it was negative because I should have probably included her in everything that was going on.
Why is that?
Because then I took everything there was like a little bit of resentment on my part, probably.
Resentment towards you?
Just because, I guess it just maybe because you're taking everything on, thinking you're the tough guy. You need to take everything on, and you don't. But at that time I thought I did.
If you could, let's say, obviously you're very happy. You have a wonderful girlfriend, Chris. I love Chris. Chris, if you're listening, I like you a lot. Right? Thank you for being kind. You have a good relationship with your kids, all that nine. But if you could go back in time to that, Avelino doing everything on his own, what kind of advice would you give a young Avelino who's going through a hardship, taking everything on his own? What would you say to him?
You know that Know When to Fold, that song by Kenny. What is it? Kenny, I don't know what it is.
Kenny
Loggins or something? I don't know. But anyway, know when to hold them, know when to fold.
Yeah.
I should have folded.
Ooh.
What I should have done, the day that I got the phone call saying we're not buying any more loans, I should have taken the money that I amassed, and I should have taken a pause, called everybody in a conference room, said, "Hey, we're closing today." And I should have literally folded right there and then.
Why is that?
Because I could have jumped back in a year later and made more money.
And we hired everybody who was valuable.
And we hired people that were still available, which I'm sure was going to be, people were still going to be available.
And
that's what I should have done.
What kind of impact do you think that would have had on your marriage?
I don't know.
I can't. Yeah, wow.
I don't know.
On your mental health, you would have had a year to breathe.
Mental health, I would have had a year. I would have been a year on vacation. It would have been great.
It would. Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you're saying that's the advice as like, but why didn't you fold? You're a smart guy. You're wise. Why didn't you fold?
Because again, I went through some of these cycles, but it was nothing like that. I went through cycles.
You misjudged how big of a beast.
I misjudged how big of a cycle that was going to be. I thought it was going to be a 6-month cycle, a year cycle, maybe 2 years.
Yeah.
It was 7 years, 6 years.
Yeah, you can weather the storm, but sometimes, not the hurricane forever.
Not like that.
Okay, wow. Like so then you survived. Now, fast forward, you did walk away from East Coast, right? Officially, what led to that conclusion of like, not even what led to it. That's I really don't.
I was just tired of that business.
You were tired of
a business I loved, and I wasn't into it anymore. I wasn't happy to get up in the morning and go do it anymore. And that's when I said, all right, we went and we did the title company.
So, whoa, really?
Mm-hmm.
I remember years ago, Carlos telling me about my brother's loans, but he does it here and there, right?
Yeah, I just didn't want to do it anymore. I was just burnt out on it.
And you really, like, in all capacities, all metrics, you were like a king.
Well, I mean, we were doing very well. Let's put it this way. We were definitely, there was a point where we were making an impact because other bigger companies were like, who are these guys and what can we do to take them out?
Brother, you were doing 100 loans a week.
We had people that offered me money to buy me out. They wanted to merge. We had a lot of stuff going on.
So you just got so beat up. And honestly, you did have like a very eventful experience. And even then, you basically go all the way till 2018, 17, still doing loans here and there, figuring out you're basically
Well,
reborn.
what I did is I just downsized and I became just a broker. And then I took 5 of the guys that were with me. And I said, here's what we're going to do. You guys are going to, we're not going to have an office. We're going to have an office for you guys to meet customers if you want. I don't want you in the office. I'm going to work from home. So I was ahead of my time for COVID.
Wow. Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to process all your files. I'm going to hire 2 people to process your files. And that's how we're going to do business from now on. And it was very lucrative for a time. But
Low
again,
overhead?
I was just bored, tired, burnt out. I wasn't,
Okay.
I just wasn't excited to come in anymore.
So now you're in what I would consider is probably one of the most underappreciated, most stressful positions in real estate, title. Mm-hmm. We got to ask the $1 million question. Why?
Because I know it. I know it backwards and forwards. I was reviewing title for my company years and years ago. I know how to handle problems. Well, we already talked today about one of them. That's a new one for me, by the way.
I would say shout out to you, Avelino. Shout out True Value Title for multiple reasons, but one of them, if you have a Mission Impossible file, I'm talking it really shouldn't close. You just know it. Like should not close. You gotta call Avelino because somehow this man is a miracle worker. When I say miracle, I mean 9:30 p.m. on a Thursday night, meeting you at the office before he goes on vacation Friday morning for a closing that you scheduled Thursday at 2 p.m. No exaggeration. You love solving problems.
I do.
You kind of get like high off of it. I'm not even kidding you. You get like a little fix.
I like it. I like it.
It's like the same thing when you went to your meeting, right? You said, tell me all the problems. Tell me all the problems.
Yeah, tell me the problems. Give me the problems and, don't tell me the good stuff. Give me the
What
problems.
would you say that most, and as we come to a close here, now, I appreciate you taking me through the whirlwind, which is how real estate kind of guided and impacted your life so much. What kind of person should get into the title business?
You have to be precise. You have to be detail oriented. When I mean detail oriented, you have to be able to go through every deed, read the deeds. What date did this deed go through here to here? And you have to be precise with it because when you're dealing with lot and blocks and you're dealing with the
smallest difference,
the smallest difference
makes a big difference.
Is a huge problem.
Yeah, huge.
So you have to be detail oriented.
Okay,
and
obsessively.
Obsessively. And then you have to be able to, and this is something that just comes with experience. You can't teach it. You just have to be able to know what to do in certain circumstances and who to call. Okay. And that's one of the things, like you're saying, like I'm a miracle worker. I'm not a miracle worker.
No, you are a miracle worker.
I just make the phone.
No,
I make the phone calls.
I'm sorry.
No,
I'm sorry.
I make the phone calls.
No,
where most people don't want to.
You are talking to, the God Almighty, or you're maybe talking to a witch doctor. I don't know. I'm hoping the God Almighty, not the witch doctor. But no, you are like, it has been miraculous.
Well, and listen, it's just about customer service. Like the example you just gave. It was absolutely what we did. We did a 9:30 closing or 10 o'clock closing.
Yeah, 10 o'clock, yeah.
The night before I was going away on vacation.
It was crazy.
But it had to get done. And I figured out a way to get it done.
And the deal was going to die if we didn't close that day.
Right. And that's the thing.
Single mother,
you see, and that's what
Newark.
helps me with the mortgage side and the real estate side is I know how important a closing date is for a file.
It really...
Where a lot of people in the title business don't understand that because they get paid no matter what. So they don't understand that.
I never like to speak ill of anybody, so I won't name drop. But one of your predecessors, who was at True Value before you came in and revolutionized it, was so unfathomably difficult to work with. That one time I recall literally saying to the gentleman and saying, listen, we had a secretary. After the secretary, you get to him and say, listen, with all due respect, I have worked 5 months on this file. Before that was a wonderful family. I have been looking for houses with these people for 4 months. I said, that is 9 months. Babies are born in 9 months. And I have birthed this clothing. And I try to be funny with him. He did not like that. And I said, for the love of God Almighty, change your schedule. He's like, I already have 3 closings tomorrow, 4 closings. I don't have time for another one. I said, please make the time. He's like, I have closings. And he like raised his voice and then hung up. And I had to call Carlos, pull in the favor. Because I said, this is insane.
That is the typical title company mentality.
It was crazy.
And that's why I went to title, because I think I can do a better job. We're still building it, but we're going to build it the right way. We're going to build it the right foundation. And there's no reason. And listen, for anyone who's new to real estate, who's maybe just forming a team, The most important thing is your team. You need a good mortgage person. You need a good realtor.
Yeah.
You need a good title company, and you need a good couple of attorneys. If you have that combination, you're going to be successful. Okay. But when one of those people in that link, and you know that very well, is not strong or is not doing what they're supposed to be doing, that deal becomes complicated, or those deals become complicated. And you don't need complications. Okay. I don't even get you involved in anything until I need to get you involved.
I am only involved as the last case scenario.
Right. When I need to get you involved, that's when I get you
And
involved.
as a realtor, that's what I look for my title company, my attorney, and my lender, everyone. I only want to get involved if things are, I can't, because my job really should be consoling the customer, supporting the customer, empowering the customer, and looking for new clients to really help them turn a house into a home. Correct. That's what I love to do. That's what I get to do. That's my privilege. And I get to train people how to do it. That's my job. If I am involved in the daily minutia of the little details, I will lose my mind.
You're gonna not only that, but you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, which is getting more, more sales.
And that really was my now I've been building back up now, but for a year or so after I just was burned, my mind, I had my volume was going down, a contrast to where it was, because I realized I was doing so much, and now I really have this renewed desire to just go after business, go after new clients, build relationships with my previous clients who've been so helpful. I have a client, hopefully you're listening, but Ezron, this guy is amazing human being. This guy is phenomenal. Build time with him. I helped him get I helped him get one other property, and we're buying his second property, a primary in Forest Hills in Newark. Beautiful. Actually, I don't know if it's Forest Hill or Forest Hills in Newark, but whenever I say one, they correct me on the other. So, okay, now last question for you. Realtors, the number one thing is your team. I would even agree with a buyer. If you're a buyer, your team of who's your lender, who's your attorney, who's your inspector.
That's the number one thing.
Because you're not that smart.
Yep.
I hate to say you may have a lot of information. You can Google everything, great. But this industry is so murky on how to navigate. The waters are blood-ridden. You gotta have experience behind you.
You have to have a good team. If you don't have a good team, it's pointless.
You can't read a book about it and figure it out.
Let's put it this way. Imagine everything went perfect, and then the day of closing, you have a crappy closer at your closing.
Brother, tell me one time when everything went perfect.
But just, okay, so let's just say it doesn't go perfect, but now you're at the closing table, and you have a closer who has a shitty attitude or who doesn't want to be there. Or, your agents have been at my closings, okay? I try to make it light. I try to make it. You've been at my closings.
Yes.
I try to treat everyone like family.
Yes.
If they were my brother, sister.
Closing on their house.
They're closing on their house. I'm excited for them.
Yes.
Because they're closing on
their house. That is true. You do that.
I'm excited for them.
You have the good jokes. You hit them with the one-liners.
But it should be a pleasant thing. And even if up to that point it wasn't pleasant, there was issues. It was a long road to get to that point. At least at the closing, they should be somewhat happy and excited about closing on their home. And I think a lot of the customers that leave our office are happy, are excited. Even the ones that come in and they have an attitude right off the bat. Yeah. But then it's okay, hey, I know this has been a rough road. I see the file number. I know that this has been here for 4 months. Yeah. Okay. But let's get past this. And by the time they leave my office, they're very happy. And that's the difference that we bring in that a lot of other title companies don't. And the other thing, even today, I'm going to leave here. I'm going to do a closing at 5:30. Wow. Because it was the only time she can do the closing. And that was that. So let's make it 5:30.
I've had literally title companies tell me, hey, we close at 4 o'clock.
I don't understand that.
It's the most, and the worst part is they're busy.
I don't understand
that. To me gets me upset because I'm like, you don't deserve to be busy.
I had a realtor that I've never done business before. I'm not going to say who she is. She's pretty big. And she called me and she goes, is there a possibility that we can do this closing at blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, well, I can't do that, but how about I do 6:30? And she goes, well, tonight? And I'm like, yeah. But you mean 6:30 at night tonight? I'm like, yeah. And she goes, you'll do that? I'm like, yeah.
This is what we do.
I said, yeah.
Yeah. You've even come to my office for a closing. You went to a coffee shop for a closing.
I've done closings at Newark Airport.
No, you haven't.
While a person was putting in their bags because that was the only time they can close.
There's no way that's a true story.
I swear.
Okay, so Avelino, thank you for coming on podcast. For the love of God, make sure you use this man for title for all his good beard oils that he uses. And if you really do if you're looking to buy a house, make sure you have the right team, title, lender, realtor, etc. Make sure you're working with someone who can meet you at the airport.
And by God's sake, start using True Value title.
Yes, gotta use True Value for the love of the Lord. Adios.